Uh, all right. So I wanted to say something else about yesterday when spending time at the college with John and Hazel. It was really nice. And you know what they say about when you hang out with smart people, you get smarter? Well, John taught me what a petabyte was. Don't ask me to explain it. I'm just fascinated with the fact that I know the word petabyte. And there's a joke in there somewhere about a pet and a byte, but I haven't sorted it out yet. Anyway, it was a lovely day. And my husband was here fixing things and getting things in order. And it's just really lovely to come up and it reminds me, just the weather is so beautiful. And I'm very looking forward to being here full-time one day. I know that is something that I have been treating for, so I know Spirit's going to come through for us in some particular way. So I am just relying on Spirit to make that happen for us. So, but I want to know, have you heard about the weary evangelist? No. Man, the weary evangelist, he knocked on door to door, fully expecting the door to be slammed in his face. And sure enough, sound effects. The older woman who answered angrily demanded that he leave because she figured it was just another person trying to sell her something, so she slammed the door. The door, however, opened back up, and the woman shouted, "Get your foot out of my door." "But ma'am," the evangelist began, when the woman started to slam the door again, it wasn't me. And once again, the door slammed back open. And she said, once again, "Get your foot out of my door." And one more time he said, "But it's not me." And she said, "Please, just run away." So the evangelist, with haste, was running and screamed to the woman, "Ma'am, you'd be able to close your door, but you got to get your cat out of the way." Oh, cat people. Come on. It's not my fault she doesn't look down to see her cat. Okay, I'm running out of jokes, but I'm a puppy person, I would agree with you. But anyways, okay, that was a bomb. Moving on. The first one, I know, right? It's okay. Back to petabyte. All right, we have a great talk for you today, and the talk is on breaking free from victimization. My teacher, Tom, my friend and teacher, Tom, shared an analogy with me when I first started studying with him. And what he shared with me was an analogy about a mechanic, a car, and a customer. And he said, "Tracey, I want you to really think about this. And as I tell you the story, I want you to try to understand from what aspect each of these characters play in this story." So he told me a story about how a person took his car, and the first person that came in that said, "My car is broken, and I can't start it, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and life just isn't going my way." And the mechanic said, "Okay, leave the keys in the dash and be on your way." And after about 10 more minutes of complaining, the person left. The next person came in and said, "Here's my car. It's making a knocking noise. I think it's coming from the right side, but here's my keys. Call me when it's done." And Tom said to me, "So, what do each of those stories represent?" And I said, I don't know. And he's like, "Well, take some time to journal about it, think about it." And we started working through this parable that reaches many levels in depth. And so at the surface, you can see that someone who brings their car in doesn't know what's wrong with their car. Maybe life isn't going their way, and they're victim to life, right? So one of the things he was trying to show me, oddly enough, is how, in the beginning when I first started meeting him, that I was unconsciously voicing myself as a victim to life, that life was happening to me instead of through me. And so it took me a minute. So a week later, I meet with him again, and he asked me about the story, and Sometimes when people are pointing things out to you, our ego doesn't want to see it, so you don't really get it until one day you're contemplating it and you're like, oh, he's talking about me. Oh, I'm the victim. And I started to become more aware of how I was moving and breathing and having my being through the circumstances of life that can be very difficult. So on the journey, we often face situations that make us feel powerless or stuck, much like the broken down car that needs repair. So today I want to explore some things that keep us trapped in victimization, and using this profound analogy about the mechanic and the car and the customer. The analogy can help us recognize that when we're playing the victim, how we can shift the state of victimization to empowerment to live the life that we ultimately desire and that we truly are. Because we are life. We are life in this body, expressing it in different ways through different people. And sometimes the things that happen to us in life, if we are not aware, or if we're moving through life feeling again like life is happening to us, it can be very difficult to break free from traumatic situations, or maybe jobs, or trying to find the love of your life, or marriage, children. And so because we are all raised in different ways, and if your parents had a tendency to victimize themselves, then you would probably learn this as well. We were driving up today, and we were watching Instagram videos, like I normally do. And one of the things that we talked about, and that I saw, was, for myself personally, we've talked a lot about patterns, and we've talked about conditioning. And someone that we listened to said, you have patterns and you have conditionings, but there comes a time where you can no longer say, oh, that's a habit or a pattern or a condition. It becomes a choice. After the third time, it becomes a choice. However, I personally found it interesting that a lot of people like to stay under the guise of habit or pattern because it doesn't require us to step forward and take responsibility for our lives. It doesn't require us to step forward and say, I am creating my life and the circumstances in it. And when we can say it's a habit, it's more that we get to stay behind the scenes and we can stay in life as happening to us. Because sometimes to our mind, this is a better place to be because life can be quite difficult. But ultimate freedom is when you realize that you're in choice, because the problem then goes away because you're able to face it, tell the truth about it, find a trusted advisor, and break free to learn how to live the life without victimization. The life of victimization can be very appealing if we are not self-aware, because I realized I was raised in my house with my religion and my upbringing, that service was different than what we consider service. So if you were down, you were out, you were not feeling well, that people took care of you. So as a little child, you want people to take care of you, so you learn. You might, when you're sick, mommy comes. When you have a tummy ache, someone comes and picks you up from school. Or if you have a math test and you cry long enough, your mom will write the answers down for you. And so as you grow, it's kind of funny, right? But you learn to do this in broader and more expansive ways as you become an adult. And so I had to really take a look at myself and see and acknowledge that I learned this, a way of being, and it was so wonderful for somebody to show me a very loving way to look at it without judgment about it. Because it's not that it's right or wrong. It is just who we learn to be. And what I know about that space or that way of being is it doesn't yield you the life that you want or deserve. Because that life keeps you in a repetitive cycle of wanting, needing, depression, sorrow, suffering. Now, all of those things are going on all the time in our lives. But when we become aware we can make active choices to live a different way, and then to acknowledge, hey, give me a moment, I'm going to feel sorry for myself right here, right now. So the mechanic who diagnoses that doesn't fix in this scenario, right? So we have this mechanic. The mechanic stands for life or your higher self. And I was talking to somebody recently, having a meeting with them, and it dawned on me that if you go to the mechanic and you tell them what's wrong with your car and how to fix it, you're not going to get very far with that mechanic, right? You walk in, you say, the engine's ticking, but you need to look under the hood and change the oil and the tires, and the mechanic's gonna be like, who's doing this job, me or you? And sometimes we approach God this way. We approach God or life or your higher self, and we tell them what's wrong, and then we tell them how to fix it. And that keeps us in the loop as well. We might recognize that something in our life isn't working out, and instead of taking responsibility, we expect that mechanic to do it for us. So both of those things, telling the mechanic, expecting the mechanic. But the person who walks in that says, here's my keys, this is your skill set, you do it, call me and let me know. They have broadened themselves to allowing life to bring them that which they need to live that life. And if you're stuck in suffering and wanting to live a life, there's a dichotomy within you between this victim and wanting freedom, and you're always at odds with yourself. So the question of reflection is, how often do we identify problems in our lives but fail to take the steps necessary to address them? How can we expect others to fix our situation if we are not taking personal responsibility for it? The customer who complains but doesn't seek solutions, this customer is trapped in that cycle of complaining without ever addressing their core issues. They focus on discomfort, the unfairness, the inconvenience of the situation, rather than seeking a solution. The victim's mindset, where we become so absorbent in our own suffering and we make our life really small. Our center of focus isn't broad with that. That represents the victim mindset, where suffering and the attempt to change it can become very difficult, because we're not looking out at our circumstances, we're looking to blame, which again, there's no judgment about that. I've definitely been there, because it feels better to have somebody else, they must have done that. Because we don't have to look at our own personal reasons and find the traumas within ourselves and do the inner exploration. Moving from victim to empowered, the actor, in science of mind, we understand that our thoughts create our reality. And when we dwell in victimization, we limit ourselves and we perpetuate the problems that we face. Instead, we must shift our focus from the problem to the solution. In victimization, we're focused on the problem, the world out there, what's happening to me, what you're doing to me. And when you move to an empowered life, an empowered circumstance, you're looking for the solution. You're communing with your higher self. You're getting still and silent, waiting for direction. We must become both the mechanic and the empowered customer, identifying the issues and taking proactive steps to resolve it. A question for reflection on this would be, how can we move from identifying problems to actively solving them? What steps can we take today to stop playing the victim and start living from a place of power? Your power, your mechanic, your inner mechanic is you. It is your truth. It is your highest self. It is the answer and the question. The mind, the personality. When we live from those habitual patterns and places of lack of choice, that is the life that we lived and how we were informed. And when you end up in a place like this, the beauty of it is that Ernest Holmes knew there was a way for you to see this if it's a part of your personality, maybe not. But in hearing these words, you might now hear it as somebody else speaks, and you will be able to share the story about the mechanic, the car, and the customer, and see how they are all three parts of our personality. The mechanic being life is not our personality. It is life or higher self or truth. But the two customers are reflective of a person living in their power, living their life, making decisions, taking responsibility. And the customer who is the victim, they have a tendency to live in chaos. They have a tendency to repeat the same things. They have a tendency to complain about their life because it's not changing. So a lot of folks teeter between those two things when they find their way here. I know that finding my way to science of mind and reading this thing called You and changing all of the we's to I's, when I read that book, it was eye-opening for me in the first person. It was the first time that I saw the me in everything. Because when we live as a victim, we don't see the me, we see the you doing it to me. And what we begin to understand in the empowered person is that life is about skills, and everybody we meet has a certain skill. And they're either skilled in one thing or they're not. And it's not a bad thing. We have expectations of people to be a particular way. And when they don't show up for us in that way, we can slip into to me. But when we see maybe that's just not an area of their expertise, we can slip into the world of through me, and we let people off the hook. We can have an expectation and have a sense of curiosity and openness. The person who lives their life from that sense of empowerment has that sense of openness, that sense of curiosity. And I am, for one, so grateful that this analogy was shared with me. And I will close with this. As I was talking to this person, I realized that all of our actions come from what we have been talking about. Our inner traumas, our alarm system. It is our triggers. And as we become more of the customer that's aware, we can be aware of our triggers before they happen, and we can go into a meditative state. We can phone a friend. We can hide in the closet. We can go outside and, throw a rock at the brick wall, not windows, brick walls, scream in a pillow. There's a lot of ways we can dilute that energy as it arises, because it is, we are all people, and we do have that humanness about us. And as I was talking to her, I realized what I kept hearing was, but I don't know how. And I said, when you don't know how, you don't do. But when you do know how, you start. And when I was in Colorado, they had the tornado alarm systems. And there was a couple cities where these alarm systems were broken. And so they had to set the alarms off through the whole state to see the ones that were broken. They couldn't diagnose them before turning them on. They had to see that they were broken, right, in order to fix them. So sometimes when our alarm systems trigger, we react. It's basically our little tornado alarm system going, oh, trigger, trigger, trigger. And then now we know, oh, when this happens, I'm triggered. Then we can take personal, it doesn't become a problem anymore because now you're aware of it. So when we learn what sets us off, and we can allow these things to happen because they are internal guidance systems to point us in a new direction. Because if we have a desire to live a better and beautiful life, then we have to let go of what's holding us back. I invite you to understand that you cannot know your tornado alarm system is going off if you don't do the work. But when it goes off, you can pay attention. Instead of going out and reacting, you can start slowly to see, that's it. And I know, I still get triggered, and I sometimes see it before and sometimes I don't. And when I don't, I know it's time to step back, forgive myself, ask if apology is needed, step back into the customer that takes responsibility for their life, and then recreate, redo. And so when that comes up again, I can be a little bit more aware of the signal that says, hey, take a breath. And with that, I just want you to know that it is possible, like all things are possible. Let us take responsibility for our own cars, ensure that we are both diagnosing the issue and actively working to repair them with your mechanic, thereby driving forward with purpose, power, and intention to live the life of your dream. And so it is. We'll let Jackson tickle the ivories. And we'll close in prayer. One big breath in. Here we go. I just know right here, right now. Are you messing with me, Jackson? We like to have fun too. I just know right here, right now, that humor, life, loving, laughing, those are all empowered, beautiful embodiments of the divine spirit, showing us that life is here to be lived. If we let go of anything that's holding us back, we look inward with introspection, with curiosity into our own nature, asking the questions that need to be asked and allowing the mechanic to lead the way. We surrender in bhakti, devotion, and love. We let go of all the pain and the hurt and the blame and the shame and the guilt and the judgment. We recognize that a life of freedom is on the other side of that. And when it arises, it's perfectly okay, because our human nature, the beautiful gift of being a human being, is to advance us forward on our path. This is the beauty of love, life, and joy. I know that spirit, that indwelling presence, that mechanic, has all of us right in the hands of love, that we need to just stop, breathe, and know that sense of gratitude, which I believe is God in action through our thoughts. I recognize this community is bountiful and full of love and joy and prosperity. And therefore, each and every person that watches online, that drives by, that sits in these seats, those qualities are present and magnified and floweth over in our connection to one another. I send these words out into the law knowing they cannot be returned void, because God is, therefore we are.